I didn't think we'd be getting a response this quickly, but here we have it, and I think it's important to break everything down. So previously, for those of you who have seen my coverage, you may know that this story had a lot of qualities to it that made it seem incredibly vindictive, almost as if the story was platformed from a place of pettiness or revenge. We managed to piece that together through interviews, bits of KP's video, and even some circumstantial evidence here and there. However, in SaberSpark's response, we see even more information that doesn't help KP's case and makes the situation a lot worse for KP, and even the Twitter user known as BronyFanDon't.
I met KP in 2014. We lived in the same state and eventually became friends. This was mainly because we shared common interests, as we were both part of the Brony fandom and were both YouTubers as well.
So as we can see here, KP already had personal ties to SaberSpark, which adds another layer on top of already abundant amounts of layers. SaberSpark goes on to explain their connection, their relationship as YouTube creators, and how they communicate with each other about videos and how they grew apart over a period of years. And the reason why this is important is because this plays a factor into how someone involved in the middle of allegations such as KP could have had deeper biases than someone online who just wanted to quote-unquote do the right thing. When you're too emotionally invested in a story due to personal ties, more often than not, as we've seen online, that only serves to add disbelief to what could be potentially true allegations. Although, the way that things have been presented right now, it appears that these allegations may not have a lot of substantiation. I won't make my personal opinions too strong here, but if you want my unfiltered takes, check out the links in the description. And with that being said, the likelihood of SaberSpark having actually been guilty of a crime here, per my opinion, is very low, especially when you take into consideration the motivations behind these allegations and the testimony's contents.
Told me that according to KP, one of the editors on my team allegedly did something inappropriate to her back in 2015. I immediately addressed this with my editor, and he told me that the matter was settled between him and KP. I took his word on that and assumed that KP would reach out to me directly if that was not the case.
A lot of people following the situation have been assuming and casting guilt on SaberSpark over his quote-unquote support of Chris, which KP also had personal issues with, or his quote-unquote support of Black Griffin, which is another case entirely that was botched by BronyFanDon't, which is a completely rash and irresponsible thing to do. If you take a moment to read these DMs, you will see that SaberSpark did the responsible thing, reached out to Chris to get his side before canning the guy if he wanted to, and was also vigilant of his own people, as he states, which is actually a responsible way for SaberSpark to have handled the situation. Someone should not be assumed as guilty of something simply for what they defend, even if at a surface level it appears incredibly gross. That does not equate to them being equally as malicious, if at all.
On November 12th, 2024, KP made a tweet where she was upset that Chris was still working on my projects. She then posted, "Video coming soon." On January 6th, 2025, KP emailed me demanding I take action due to Chris and what she claimed he did nearly 10 years ago. Due to a leaked call between Chris and KP, they recalled the full story. Chris made a sex joke in regards to KP, and she found out about it many years later. What shocked me was when I was informed this call was recorded without Chris's knowledge or consent. Chris profusely begged for forgiveness at the end of the call, and it looked like both KP and Chris ended on amicable terms, which matches what I was told by Chris when I initially confronted him about the situation.
Yeah, Chris, you want to say anything?
I guess I'd go first, yeah.
Go for it.
All right. Well, first, I think it's the obvious thing is one, just want to profusely apologize for that terrible fucking thing I did.
Mm-hmm.
And that, God, was an absolute horrible person so many years ago. And you didn't deserve that. So.
All right. So I don't really have anything else that I feel comfortable saying at this point, but you know, I'll just leave with good luck and may God have mercy on your soul. And you know, this too shall pass. Okay? All those things together. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Well, have a good night. And I think I'm gonna limit my communication with you for obvious reasons, but
no, that's perfectly reasonable, and I understand.
As we can see, KP was being extremely vindictive here, wanting for SaberSpark to can this guy even though SaberSpark had already determined that the issue was resolved. At this point, if both of these individuals put their difference aside and Chris apologized for his past behavior, what more could you reasonably expect? Is a person not allowed to grow and change as a person? It is entirely KP's prerogative to still be upset. Sure, she's entitled to that, but that doesn't give her the right to expect others to treat him the same way she wants him to be treated. She doesn't get to determine how someone gets judged or punished. That's simply not how society functions.
Leading up to the release of KP's video, she was telegraphing her intentions and who they were against. She advertised a video schedule, a watch party, a YouTube premiere, and a slew of other posts in order to build up hype for her expose. Bernie fandom was involved too, foreshadowing the release of the video on their Twitter leading up to the release. According to KP, the anonymous story would be posted on Twitter by Bernie fandom at 10 a.m., with her video premiere about my false allegations 2 hours later. What was to follow would be a video that was not just tone deaf, but dangerously reckless with the lives of others. KP has gone on record saying that the video was originally intended for DA Games, but included me in the allegations a month prior to the release of the upload. The video itself was titled, "What Ruined SaberSpark in DA Games?" and was over 2 hours long. It was primarily advertised as breaking the news of my false allegations.
Based on all of these details so far, it is extremely easy to handwave any potential allegation brought forward by KP or Brony fandoms in the future, given their extreme lack of care for these subject matters. These people are now known to be incredibly reckless with the information they receive and do little to no due diligence to avoid platforming potential false allegations or allegations made based on a misunderstanding or a personal vendetta. And as we have seen, every single detail at hand points just about anyone looking at this in the direction of this being a grudge-fueled smear piece meant to destroy careers over long-held spite. This does not serve to give victims a voice or help people come forward through overcoming their fears. It makes people significantly more skeptical each and every time something like this happens, which makes real victims afraid to speak out in situations like this due to the intense amount of scrutiny that gets compounded each and every time a story like this gets thrown at the wall and then botched. Even if these allegations were true or significantly worse than the testimony alleges, which to be clear, I'm not saying is the case, given the way that this was handled with no information to prove that it occurred and the immense amount of skepticism accumulated, SaberSpark gets to just hand wave it away since there is literally nothing to dispel the mistrust. So for those of you that are concerned that he didn't directly address the allegations or offer any counter evidence, I suggest you look into proving negatives. SaberSpark realistically doesn't need to disprove he did anything, as there isn't enough information to definitively prove that he did.
By their own words, they believe that internet justice is more effective than courtroom justice. They seem to see themselves as judge, jury, and executioner, and launch vicious harassment campaigns against multiple online creators, such as Billy Bustup, Prince Whateverer, and Black Griffin. Bernie fandom has on multiple occasions used falsifiable information to attack people with. According to KP's post, Bernie fandom was in her Discord server, and according to this person, they were allegedly friends. On May 1st, 2025, Bernie fandom shared KP's false allegations against me. After public backlash for their post, Bernie fandom was constantly arguing with people in the replies. Some people asked if he suggested professional organizations to the victim prior to reaching out to KP, and he said no. Many were inquiring about RAIN, and he had no idea what that was. At the time of recording this video, the post is still up on Twitter and has not been corrected, despite being false and unsubstantiated. Finally,
this part right here should give you a really decent idea of just who these types of people are. This Brony fandom individual doesn't even know what RAIN is, and genuinely believes that internet justice is better than real justice, as if situations like these don't blow over within weeks, as if people, if they're big and entertaining enough, can't just keep pushing forward through unsubstantiated allegations and continue their careers. Internet justice is literally nothing, and is only something that naive morons play into. To be clear, these people don't care about victims. They don't care about someone being held accountable for their actions. They don't care about fair punishment for misdeeds. They only care to enforce their own worldview, which is typically skewed in the most naive and idiotic way imaginable. They sit on their self-righteous high horse pretending like they can save people by damaging someone's career as a punishment. But in reality, what they do is make situations like these more and more messy and unbelievable each time they appear, because they enact their own sense of justice, which is completely out of touch from reality. Anyways, I highly suggest watching SaberSpark's response. While it could be better, and while I would like for him to give a side of the story in regards to these allegations, as I am still skeptical about nothing or something happening, he did a pretty good job at providing a defense for himself when it comes to the unvetted and irresponsible platforming of unsubstantiated allegations. That's all I got for today. Thank you.